If someone told me that a normal night stocking shelves at Walmart would become the most disturbing shift of my life, I probably would have laughed it off. Looking back now, I wish I had. In 2015, I was finishing college and desperately trying to pay down my student loans. Like a lot of students, one job wasn't enough. During the weekends and occasional weekdays, I worked overnight shifts at Walmart as a stock associate. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills. Most nights followed the same predictable routine: signing for deliveries, moving inventory, organizing stock in the warehouse, and filling shelves while the store sat empty and silent. The shift usually ran from around 11 at night until 7 in the morning. Once the customers were gone and the lights dimmed to their overnight settings, the building felt completely different. The endless rows of merchandise stretched into the distance, creating long corridors of shadows between shelves. Every sound echoed farther than it should have. On July 9th, 2015, I clocked in alongside two co-workers, Alvin and Baco. The three of us were the only employees working in the building that night. We all arrived together, wearing the same Walmart staff shirts, and then split up to handle different sections of the store. A few hours into the shift, I was working in electronics. The department was quiet except for the occasional hum of fluorescent lights overhead. I was focused on organizing merchandise when movement caught the corner of my eye. Someone had just walked past the aisle. At first, it seemed insignificant. Then I remembered something. There were only 3 people in the building, and whoever I'd just seen wasn't wearing a staff shirt. The figure was dressed entirely in black. My stomach tightened. I immediately stepped to the end of the aisle and peeked around the corner, expecting to catch Alvin or Baco playing some kind of joke. The aisle was empty, completely empty. I called out both of their names. Alvin, no response. Baco, nothing. The silence that followed felt strangely heavy. I stood there for several seconds, staring down the vacant aisle before eventually convincing myself I'd imagined it. Maybe I had only caught a glimpse of a shadow. Maybe one of my co-workers had walked by faster than I realized. Still, a nagging feeling followed me as I returned to work. And before long, that feeling would become impossible to ignore. I tried to shake off the uneasiness and focus on my work. At that point, I had been holding in a trip to the bathroom for a while. My plan was simple: finish stocking the aisle, then head to the employee restroom in the warehouse area. But before I could finish, a violent crash exploded somewhere deeper in the store. The sound was so sudden and loud that I physically jumped. For a split second, it sounded like someone had knocked over an entire display. I dropped what I was doing and hurried toward the noise. The sound had come from several aisles away. When I reached the area, I found a bicycle lying on the floor. Not leaning, not partially hanging, completely knocked down. I stared at it in confusion. The hook it had been hanging from wasn't broken. It wasn't bent. There was no obvious reason for the bike to have fallen. Someone would have needed to pull it down with force. Slowly, I lifted the bicycle back into place. The entire time, I couldn't stop scanning the surrounding aisles. The store felt different now. Every aisle suddenly seemed too long. Every intersection between shelves felt like a blind corner where someone could be standing. I began walking toward the back of the store, checking nearby sections as I went. When I reached the paper and cleaning supplies aisle, the atmosphere became even stranger. That's when I heard it. A laugh. At least, that's the closest thing I can compare it to. It wasn't loud. It wasn't normal. It sounded distorted somehow, like someone trying to suppress laughter while hiding nearby. The sound came from the next aisle over. Instantly, adrenaline surged through me. I moved quickly around the corner, and then I saw him. A man dressed entirely in black stood near the end of the aisle. His back faced me, but his head was turned just enough that I could see half of his face. For one frozen second, neither of us moved. My heart slammed against my ribs. There was no doubt now. Someone else was inside the building. Then suddenly he ran. Not toward me, away from me. His footsteps pounded against the floor as he disappeared into another aisle. The sound echoed through the store. Then another aisle. Then another. It was impossible to tell where he was. And mixed between those footsteps, I heard that same unsettling laugh again. The noise seemed to move around me, circle me, follow me. At that moment, I had a decision to make. Chase the stranger, or find my coworkers. I chose the second option. I moved quickly through the store, listening carefully for any sign of the man. Every few seconds, I caught another burst of footsteps somewhere in the distance. Then silence. Then another strange laugh. The sounds never stayed in one place. It was as if whoever was making them knew exactly how to stay out of sight. I finally found Alvin working in the women's department. Relief washed over me the moment I saw another employee. I immediately told him what had happened. "There's somebody in here," I said. "A guy dressed all in black." At first, Alvin looked confused. Then he saw the expression on my face and realized I wasn't joking. I explained everything: the figure in electronics, the bicycle, the laughing, and the man I'd seen standing at the end of the aisle. We didn't have walkie-talkies that night. Communication was basically impossible unless we physically found each other. I told Alvin to warn Baco if he saw him. After that, I finally decided I couldn't delay my bathroom break any longer. The employee restroom was located in the warehouse area, away from the main sales floor. Normally, it wasn't a place I thought twice about. That night felt different. The walk there seemed longer than usual. The warehouse was quiet except for the distant hum of refrigeration units and ventilation systems. When I reached the restroom, I stepped inside and locked myself in one of the stalls. For the first time in several minutes, I thought I might finally get a chance to calm down. I couldn't have been more wrong. A few moments later, the restroom door opened, then closed. The sound echoed through the room. Assuming it was one of my coworkers, I called out casually, "Who was that?" No answer. Immediately, a cold feeling settled in my chest. The silence lasted several seconds. Then I heard it. That laugh. The exact same laugh. It bounced off the tiled walls and sounded even worse inside the confined space. My entire body went rigid. I stared at the gap beside the stall door. A shadow appeared. Someone was standing there. Slowly, a figure stepped closer. 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 Until the narrow crack was almost completely blocked. I could see part of a face. Then only an eye. Watching me. Not speaking. Not moving. Just staring. And then the whispering started. I couldn't understand a single word. But hearing it echo through that empty restroom was enough to make my hands start shaking. The whispering continued. Low. Quiet. Unintelligible. Yet somehow more disturbing because I couldn't understand what was being said. I remained frozen inside the stall, staring at that single eye visible through the crack. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong. Very wrong. The stranger wasn't trying to rob me. He wasn't asking for help. He wasn't behaving like a normal trespasser. He seemed to be enjoying the fear he was creating. That's what terrified me most. Then I remembered something. I had Alvin's phone number saved in my contacts. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone. The screen felt impossibly bright in the dim restroom. I dialed immediately. The call connected. "Alvin," I said loudly. "Get to the bathroom right now." I didn't care if the stranger heard me. In fact, I wanted him to. I continued speaking loudly, making sure anyone listening would know help was on the way. The eye remained fixed on me for a few seconds. Then the whispering stopped. Suddenly, the figure stepped away from the stall. The shadow disappeared. I heard quick footsteps crossing the restroom floor. Then the door burst open. A second later, it slammed shut again. The stranger was gone. I stayed on the phone with Alvin. "Hurry," I kept saying. Every second felt longer than the last. I expected the door to reopen at any moment. I expected the whispering to return. Instead, the restroom remained silent. Roughly 20 to 30 seconds later, the door opened again. This time it was Alvin. The relief was immediate. He looked around the restroom and then back at me. "I didn't see anybody," he said. That didn't make me feel any better. If the stranger had left only moments before Alvin arrived, where had he gone? The store was huge, but it wasn't infinite. Someone should have seen him. Someone should have heard him. Yet there was no sign of him anywhere. Neither of us had any practical way to investigate. There were no security guards working while the store was closed. The cameras existed, but we couldn't access them. We were essentially 3 employees trapped in a massive building with a person who clearly wasn't supposed to be there. After that, I made a decision. I wasn't going anywhere alone. Not for the rest of the night. Whatever sections Alvin worked in, I worked there too. Safety in numbers suddenly felt like the only reasonable strategy. The remaining hours of the shift crawled by. Every sound made me look over my shoulder. Every distant noise felt suspicious. But despite constantly watching our surroundings, neither Alvin nor I saw the man again. No more footsteps. No more whispering. No more laughter. At least not where we could hear it. Eventually morning arrived. The darkness outside faded. Employees from the daytime crew began showing up, and the strange atmosphere that had hung over the store throughout the night slowly disappeared. but I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. Before leaving work, I sent a detailed text message to my supervisor explaining everything. I described the stranger dressed in black, the bicycle that had somehow been knocked down, the encounter in the aisle, the restroom incident, everything. Then I went home and tried to sleep. When I finally woke up around 3 in the afternoon, I checked my phone. My supervisor had replied. At first, his message seemed normal. Then I reached the part that made my stomach drop. According to him, the surveillance camera feeds from the previous night had been unusable. The screens had returned nothing but static footage. Every camera, the entire night. As far as he knew, nobody had intentionally disabled them. Nobody had turned them off. Nobody had reported technical issues beforehand. Yet when they reviewed the recordings, there was no useful video from the hours when everything happened. I sat there staring at the text message. A chill ran through me. The one thing that could have confirmed what I experienced was gone. No footage of a trespasser. No footage of someone moving through the aisles. No proof of a break-in. Nothing. My supervisor believed me, and he suspected the camera failure might somehow be connected to the incident. But without evidence, there wasn't much anyone could do. The matter never went anywhere. No suspect was identified. No explanation was ever provided. And eventually the store simply moved on. I did too, at least outwardly. But even now, years later, I still remember every detail of that night. The half-visible face at the end of the aisle. The footsteps echoing through empty departments. The eye staring through the bathroom stall. The whispering. The laughter. Most overnight shifts are forgettable. That one wasn't. Out of every night I ever worked, it remains the only shift where something happened that I still cannot explain. And the fact that there was never any proof somehow makes it even more disturbing.